Hi, welcome to Reawakening Beauty. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. I'm so excited to have you here. I love talking about all things skin-related, beauty-related, and mind-related. Here I empower you, mind, body, skin, and soul. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reawakening Beauty. It has actually been quite a minute since I've been here, and I'm with my amazing guest, Gabi. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about self-care in challenging times, whether it could be taking care of a loved one, whether you've been hit with illness yourself, your time could be depleted. So I thought Gabi was the perfect person because she's got a very busy life. She has a husband and a child, and she's got all these different things. And the dynamic that I'm coming from is I've always been into self-care, but my dad recently got sick. He actually ended up in the ICU. So I thought there's a lot of people going through challenging times right now. So we're going to just dive into what self-care is. So Gabi, did you want to kind of take the lead here and introduce yourself and then basically tell everyone how you manage yourself through a challenging time to make time for self-care?
I love that. Hi, Shawna. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. Before I became an integrative health coach, I basically struggled like everybody else trying to prioritize the things that are important in order to be able to be efficient in life. And self-care is just one of those things that if you want to get far and if you want to attain certain things, you really do have to prioritize yourself in the way that the air flight attendants say put your oxygen mask on first. It's something that in order to live in your optimal state, you must do.
I was singing that tune for a long time. And then my dad got sick. And then I was like, I need to be there because he's not going to be okay. How do you do that for yourself? Because I'm sure everybody hears it, but then you go through something where it hits your in impact. How do you do it? Like I know how I figured it out for myself, but how did you manage to like put on your oxygen mask and then maybe share if you feel comfortable what you're going through, if that is fitting for you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very transparent and it's important to be transparent because then people can relate to knowing that just because you look like you have things together, it doesn't mean that you have everything figured out. And it took me a long time to get into a rhythm. So it's really about getting a rhythm that works for you. So everyone's schedule looks different. I have the opportunity to work from home, which means that I'm available to bring my son to school, which means I'm available to be there for my husband when he is in and out of surgery, because unfortunately, health has taken a toll on him through things that I guess, are typically neglected as you're growing and then abused. And then you have to deal with the consequences, right? And then I have my father who suffers from cognitive decline, and he's here very often. And I'm lucky to be able to have him here because I work from home. So, because I got all these things to work in my favor, I am able now to create a schedule for myself to make sure that, maybe I have to get up just a little bit earlier to be able to put in a workout because me personally, I need to get my energy flowing in a positive way through a workout. I am a physical being. That's how I need to stabilize myself. My husband used to wake up to meditate. If that's one thing that'll help you stabilize your emotions for the day, then that should be prioritized. And it doesn't take that much time. It could take 15 to 30 minutes. I allow 30 minutes for my workout. He allowed 15 minutes for his meditation.
So for someone, what does that look like? Because I understand saying it on paper. What does that look like carving out that time? Like what time do you go to bed at? And how do you make sure that you do get up for your workout? I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll do it. Like how do you carve that out for yourself?
I love that question. So, most of the things I do are the most basic biohacking techniques. So, the number one thing is what you said is quality sleep. There are studies that prove that women need more sleep than men, and that's mostly because of all the stages in our cycle. And we're never just the same. We're always a little bit different. So, 8 hours of sleep is a non-negotiable for me. Obviously, there are those days where it just so happens that you can't get that much. But if we're watching a movie, I say press pause, and that's where I end my day.
That's such a good thing that you're putting out there, because I'm the type of person, like, I run on less sleep than you, and I should be getting my 8 hours. For what I'm doing right now, I get about 6, and actually that's quite good for me. It's not great, but compared to what it was, but I find myself getting really excited and doing something, or I'm watching a movie. How do you make sure that you stick to that? Because I know sometimes you're doing something. I know you said you hit pause, but mentally, how do you cognitively get into that rule for sleep? What is your sleep routine?
For sure. I guess I have a little bit of leeway in that matter because I do have a lot of self-discipline. So where I have strength, some people lack, and with those people, I encourage a little bit of like a nighttime routine where 10 o'clock comes around and you're going to have to go take a bath because it's going to heat up your body and you're going to feel more sleepy after.
Yeah.
Or dim the lights, and that just means that your eyes are getting used to the fact that that was one of my second things I do in biohacking techniques. Very simple and doesn't cost anything, is following the circadian rhythm. So if you notice animals, they wake up with the sun and they go to bed with the sun. And yes, in the winter it's earlier, but with reason, your body needs to recuperate from all the cold it's suffered all day. So your night routine, if you're a person who, like, I can close my eyes and I won't think too much, maybe because I've conditioned myself that way. It's taken a long time, but typically I can just, yeah, it's hard, but you could do it if you really put your mind to it. So yeah, that's one of the ways I like to end my night, like kind of just wash off the day. Yeah, kind of that.
So I found for myself as well, like, it was hard. Like, for many years, I didn't run on sleep at all, and I was like the type of person, I kept going, and then I would crash 6 months out, and everybody's like, "Oh, Shawna had a crash," like she was like burning the candle at both ends. That was me all the time. But now I've prioritized sleep, and like those sleep hygiene, if you will, like. I'll find myself making a cup of tea, or like I wind down and I turn off the TV because there's blue light that impacts your sleep. But then I had this really bad habit that I would love, because I would actually carve out time for this. I would go upstairs and I would go on TikTok right before bed. And I know it stimulate me, and I would get so into the stuff. And I was like, Shawna, you have to put your phone at the other side of the room, because TikTok is not your friend at nighttime. Or I'm posting my videos and then I'm in it and I'm listening to the music, and it was waking me up. So I had to realize, girl, put your phone on the other side of the room.
Yeah, that's so hard, especially if your business is social media. And I totally agree. If you're a type of person who's easily stimulated, that's like kryptonite. That is the worst. I totally get it. I started putting my phone in my bathroom. So I have like a little night light. It's actually the most miraculous thing. It turns different shades of the sun to like physically make the room a little brighter. So if you're the type of person who is very sensitive, then you'll start to wake up slowly with the like very subtle light. And then eventually there's little birds. They'll start chirping like a little bit louder every second, I guess. And then you kind of just wake up like Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella. It's quite impressive,
Is
actually.
it an app or it's something on your phone?
No, it's an actual clock, so that way I couldn't go look at my phone. It wouldn't be at my reach.
If you can send me the link, I'll put it in the show notes for everybody who's listening.
Yeah, I'd love that. Sure.
Okay. Well, that's helpful for anyone who's struggling with sleep. So, the other question I have, so being a caretaker or being in like a stressful situation, like you're having to give more energy, and there's only 24 hours in the day. So this is where I like was like, what do I prioritize, right? Gabby, how do you know what to prioritize, whether it's your sleep, your exercise, your eating? How do you know?
I guess it would be to cultivate self-awareness. I think that's super important, especially as a woman. I could say that for a man, it must be a lot easier to just wake up and say, "How do you feel today?" Like literally what your parents would ask, "How do you feel today?" And then you say for real, without a lie, not just "I feel fine." "Oh, I feel sluggish." Okay, then maybe you should focus on the foods you eat today. Maybe they'll nourish you better to have better energy. What if it's you wake up and you're really anxious or overwhelmed about the day that is to come? Well, I would suggest to start your day with a workout. But yeah, that's how you should evaluate what you should be doing for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're expected to show up as a leader, as a supporter, as a person of influence, I guess. So if people require your wits and your strategies, then you're going to need to be aware and alert.
That's so good. I think you just broke that down so amazingly. So a lot of people here like eat certain amount of calories, right? Eat like you need to get 8 hours of sleep. You need to do this. And like how you just said it, you're like, you're intuitively seeing how you feel, right? Or like you need to work out 5 days a week. What would you say to somebody who's like, how do they figure that out? Just listen, like you said, or would they work with someone like you to kind of move through this? Because I think a lot of people have been so conditioned to not listen to themselves. Like I know that for myself, you hear the amount of calories, the amount of this, it gets overwhelming because you're trying to do all the things that you should do. And then you get almost confused. Like, what the hell am I doing? Should I be working out and cutting my sleep here? Because how do you do all of it?
That's such a really great question because you are so right. I feel as though we've been conditioned to forget to live intuitively. And I think that that's such a shame. I have to say that I cultivated intuition by being curious. So if someone made an observation that I was bitchy today, or sorry, if I don't know if I can say that, but
Say that on my show.
well, then I can say, well, you know what? Instead of being egotistical and saying, how dare you? I say, wait a second, explain that to me because I don't see what you're seeing, or I see what you're seeing, and let's explore that because that's definitely not my intention. And I think that once you start being more curious, you start to realize how you are, what you need, when you need it, and that's something that you can learn, and with time and patience, that's just something like every day is like a little thing. Nobody needs to change everything overnight.
I love that because a lot of people like myself, you get confused. When I first got into this whole self-care role, I was like, oh, like I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And it's hard to figure it out. But then you go through and like listen to yourself and your body. But like you said, our intuitions have been like turned down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess for yourself, I want to kind of trajectory into something else, like intuitively eating, right? Like you have a gluten intolerance. I have some allergies as well. How do you intuitively, like if you're running from to and from, how do you start your day? Like what does your day look like, Gabi, with your food to intuitively make sure you're kind of nourishing yourself so you're not burnt out and you have the energy for the day?
Wow, that's such a loaded question because Shauna, I'm sure you're aware, but women are complicated beings.
Yes, you are.
And I guess it's the way like you kind of, this is one of those things where I have non-negotiable, and for me, women who age specifically, we have hormones that will blow up in our face one day.
Mhm.
So I just want to take a step before it actually hits me and think, okay, well, what can I do to favor it? So I prioritize organic food, and if that means that's seasonal, then it makes it even easier to choose because there's not so many to choose from. I know that a woman's body needs fats and it needs quality protein and, some fiber to move things around. So
Yeah.
as long as you find some type of balance, if you're craving eggs with avocado and toast, then that's what you should be eating. I went from being vegan to eating meat, and because a doctor told me I had to, and it was really one of those blessing in disguise because I didn't eat any meat for years, and then one day I was cutting meat for my kid and I put it in my mouth instinctively, and it was just, it doesn't mean that you have to eat meat all the time. I eat vegan food all the time, but I eat meat when I need to.
Yeah, I think it's all about kind of listening to your body, listening to the tools like your doctor, whatever, and just finding out what your body kind of needs. Now, for somebody who doesn't know what they need, right? Like we're blasted with so many things like eat this, eat that, like you need this amount of protein. Again, very confusing diet culture out there, right? Like there's the keto, there's the vegan, there's this, that, and the other. For myself, like I'm going to hospital, I will pack stuff when I go to the hospital, but then you're like, you hear so many different things. How did you break down your nutritional needs, like for yourself? Like you went to school for this, so I think this is great for our listeners to hear. How did you break that down?
For so if I'm looking at what I need specifically, if you want to get really specific and really down to the point, there are a lot of different tools you can use, especially if you're going to evaluate your DNA in a way that tells you what you're specifically missing, maybe in your macronutrients, maybe in your minerals, maybe you need extra supplementation. And you know what? Bio individual needs are a real thing. So what might be good for me and I might not be good for you. And food intolerances come into play too, right? I found out that I have a genetic predisposition to certain foods. So I always make sure that I have high quality protein snacks in my car. Most of the time, I bake them myself. I end up putting vegan protein powders inside. So protein is actually super important for women and for making sure that your muscles are being maintained properly. And it's also, a currency for longevity. So protecting my muscles with quality protein is important. So I'm always having it lying around. And I make sure that there's some in all of my meals, or else I create a smoothie and I bring it on the go. Those are my go to if I don't know where I'm going, what it's going to look like.
That's what I do too. Like if I don't know what the heck to have, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to make a smoothie because I can throw in some fruits, veggies, protein, and I know I'm getting all the food and some fat. Like I'll have like a rice cake with flax butter or some butter on it or something like that, like a vegan butter or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always like gear back to like a smoothie because it's so easy to make on the go. But I think you actually had mentioned this to me is like, just make sure you're having all the food groups, and it makes it
Right.
a lot easier. So you're not kind of like, there's no food shame or anything like that. You're just kind of nourishing your body. I mean, that helps me so much, that tip. It's like, make sure you're having like a colorful plate, like you're having veggies, fruit, all of the food groups, right? To make sure your body's nourished, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of works synergistically.
It does.
Yeah. Do you still agree by that standpoint?
I totally agree. I even try to put double vegetables, triple vegetables. But that's just my jam. That's what I like. But you should always try to make it look as most colorful, like the most attractive. If you were to go to a store and see two of the same thing, but one was more beautiful than the other, you would definitely pick the most beautiful one.
And I love hearing that, Reawakening Beauty. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about nutrition. Like for exercise, you actually put me on to like a really cool app. How do you make time for exercise? Like, do you have a routine that you typically do? I know that you said, well, I kind of see how I feel, but how do you decide what time of day? You're a little bit different because you have the luxury from being at home, but say your husband has surgery or your son has to go to school, you're taking your son to school. How do you carve out that time in your day or a week? How do you carve it out? What does Gabi's week look like to fit in your exercise, and what are your non-negotiables?
Okay, so typically I really don't like to wake up and work out right away. I really hate that. So it works out in my day that I wake up, I get physically ready, I take care of my son, make sure he goes to school, I come home, and I have a 30-minute window before I start working. So, I mean, that 30-minute window could be after I drove him to school. It could be stopping at the gym before work. It could be there's a gym at your work, or me, it's just going home so I can work. So I go by a method that's called the 2-2-2-1 method, and it's 2 days of strength resistance training, and then 2 days of cardio, 2 days of mobility, and one rest day. So if you really think about it, you're having like 3 days of rest. There's like the 2 mobility days is really like if you really feel like you want to challenge yourself, you put a little bit of resistance in your mobility, but it really is a lot of stretching and making sure you're mobile. The two resistance training, like all of these things, if you do every day of the week just like that, all you need is 30 minutes.
That's amazing. See, that's why I love you, because you break things down so simplistically, whereas I think a lot of our society has made it so hard, like, and then when you just say it, well, of course we need to stretch because as we get older, we get freaking stiff, of course,
Yeah.
we're all like, you just see elderly people, they can't move, right? They're so stiff, and we can't bend over. So of course you need that. And then you need your cardiovascular, where that's your cardio. So the way you say it, it's just so eloquent and easy for people to understand. Is there anything that I haven't touched on, anything you want to add to the conversation, anything that you think would be helpful for somebody who's listening today, as we covered such a broad spectrum of self-care?
Well, I mean, I think that we are both in a situation where life has gotten ahead of us, and there's 7 categories that can pretty much summarize self-care, because we all go through different stages, right? There's the holistic self-care practices, which is not only the physical health, but the mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
Then there's the nutrition, where we do mindful eating, choosing nourishing foods, creating balanced meals to support like optimal health and energy, right? Because we need those things. Then there's stress management to set boundaries and prioritize self care, which is what we've been doing, like breathing exercises, maybe time management strategies, or, just integrating healthy habits, which is just like setting realistic goals, or emphasizing the importance of consistency, because everyone, when they jump into something, they think they have to do it like 100%. And if they don't achieve it, then they fail. But that's not true, because 7 days out of 14, you were amazing. That's better than most people can say.
Yeah.
Then there's like self-care for different life stages, like we're going through right now, tailored to different life stages, such as self-care during busy work periods, self-care for parents during life transitions. Those things happen. So you have to, in those moments, in my opinion, kind of slow back from going out to parties and making sure that you're calling all of your girlfriends. I'm sure that all of your friends understand that when you need to pull back in order to regroup, then it's an important thing for your mental health. Seeking professional help if that's needed,
Yeah.
for recovery and maintenance. And then when you meet up with people like-minded people like ourselves, community and social support is really good for healthy relationships. It's keeps people alive and give them purpose. So I think that whatever that you're doing, this message that you're spreading on this platform is amazing. Everyone should be doing this. We should be spreading love so that we could all heal from all this ridiculousness in the world.
Exactly. And I love how you broke it down. And I think so many people think self-care is just like an exercise plan, or self-care is this, or self-care is like a diet. But like when you look at it, it's a holistic standpoint from all angles, right? And I think so often we forget about like our inner work that we need to be doing. So thank you for adding that to the conversation. Like, I encourage anyone who's like listening to this podcast today, if you have any questions, reach out to myself or Gabi. I'm going to leave all the information in the show notes, and I'm sure we'll be continuing on this conversation in other ways, because there's so many different ways of self-care. Like, I talk about skincare. We didn't get into it today, but Gabi is really great. Like, Gabi, you break down exactly what you're really great with, like, because I know you help people individually. Can you tell them exactly how you help people?
I mean, I love to listen to people about what they're going through in their lives, because everybody thrives through different bio-individual approaches. So I really hate being told that, there's one size fits all. So I try to get to know the person, try to narrow down to see what the root cause of holding them back from living their optimal lives are. A lot of us deal with pains or these things that show up in our lives where we think it's just normal, like some people who don't have regular bowel movements, or some people who just tolerate stress and don't sleep at night, or some people have eczema. All of these things are your body telling you what's like to wake up and to like try to give you a sign of, hey, something's wrong, can you just pay attention to me? So I love to work with people to find out like what that is, and then if they need guidance towards it, then I offer coaching. And then I also provide a guide that kind of gives them a step-by-step to be able to do it on their own and read through it when they need reference.
I love that. And I've actually done it with Gabi. When I was going to the gym, I had a horrible experience with a personal trainer, and it was like the worst experience ever. And Gabi has a background in a bit of fitness and massage and tons of like, she's so multifaceted. That's why I love her. And we kind of talked about my fitness, and we kind of changed the perspective of it. And I would definitely encourage you to reach out to her. So yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to let everyone know is that as the months go by, there will be a few free things that I'm launching if you guys are interested in. So stay tuned on Reawakening Beauty for little workshops where I'll teach you how to cook healthy meals. I really wanted to kind of implore people to explore like what self-care means to them and give free value. So if that's something you want to tune into or host like a little event for yourself, reach out to me or Gabby.
Thank you so much for having me, Shawna.
Yeah, thank you. And we encourage you to do something for yourself, whatever that looks like. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Reawakening Beauty. Subscribe to the podcast to hear more inspirational stories and tips related to all things mind, beauty, skin, and soul. I also encourage you to check out the show notes for additional information about my guest, the topics discussed during the episode, and of course, more information about me, your host, Shawna Patruno. If you want to be a guest on the show or just want to reach out and say hi, you can reach me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or email. All these details can be found in my show notes. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing day.